You know, I think one of the least known things about living in Greenland is how you'll be looking out for icebergs on the fjord, probably for the rest of your life. I first noticed when I visited a friend in the Canaries 2 years after I came here. When you walk along the beach or sit at a cafe, sea and ships is all you see. And yet your mind still tries to spot that one stray iceberg. There's something warm about the ice. Like when you walk the streets or climb the mountains, you can see how they carved out these fjords like a hot knife through butter. But what I didn't know was that the ice even created the Maspalomas Desert in the Canaries. But it did, because ice lowered the sea levels and laid the ocean floor bare, so its sand would be swept ashore by the wind, making its dunes an ice age desert. Who'd have thunk? The other warm thing about the ice is it's older than us, or at least many of the icebergs going by here are older than civilization, meaning that snow fell before we settled in villages. So when you sit here in Greenland, staring at the sea, or paddling your paddleboard among these giants, these are older than any text written by man, older than every city or road or church. And the last of them will still be going south, long after human civilization is remembered only by old folks who lived to see both epochs, the before and after. A collapse caused in no small part by ice going south. Which makes me think, here, with the largest iceberg I've seen in this fjord right in front of me, what if you had 5,000 of these big bergs going south from 5,000 different glaciers? 25 million icebergs heading south. What if a war was secretly declared by Team Earth against our eternal adversary, Team Raga? The never-ending greed of Global Homo, or Homo Colossus as they called us back in the 90s, back in the 80s, would surely end at last. Flooded by 5,000 times 5,000 giant icebergs, or perhaps 500 times 500, as an exercise or proof of concept. Its key harbor facilities take out some core military, industrial, and agricultural infrastructure, effectively jamming the global and regional supply chain. Team Raga wouldn't stand a chance after that. But now I want to take you up on the highest peak of the ice sheet. We'll fly inland using the updrift of these new super hot sunny September days up to Camp Summit, where it rained for the first time this August. And I need you to lean in a little bit and be very quiet. For what I'm going to reveal to you now cannot be said out loud in the world of Team Raga. Our inland ice sheet passed its tipping point. So you see there will be endless days of 5,000 times 5,000 icebergs. Going south like Roman legionaries, out on a long march to battle against their Team Raga enemy. And let us keep flying east to the coast on the other side of the ice cap. And if you look closely, you'll see the wolves and the ice bear hunting for their next meal in the quickly melting coastal landscape. Ice bear mostly alone or followed by their cubs, but the ice wolves hunting in giant packs. Only occasionally do you see lone wolves or bears actually crossing the 2,000 to 3,000 meter thick ice sheet to the west coast in a desperate search for food when things go south on the east side. Wolves and bears, of course, root for Team Earth, the winning side in this war. Easy, along with the char, salmon and trout. The mighty eagle, the raven, eider, reindeer and muskox. This is my Nirvana, watching it, paddling it, filming, ice, wolves, ice bears, char, salmon, trout, majestic eagle, ravens that darken the sky, sweet family units of eider, reindeer, muskoxen. I got all my sisters with me.
Where does the Arctic ice come from? In his book, Homo Deus, popular author Yuval Noah Harari writes, quote, "Officially, we live in the Holocene epoch, yet it may be better to call the last 70,000 years the Anthropocene epoch, the epoch of humanity. For during these millennia, Homo sapiens became the single most important agent of change in the global ecology. This is an unprecedented phenomena. Since the appearance of life about 4 billion years ago, never has a single species changed the global ecology all by itself." End quote. That sweeping statement is actually grossly false. For example, about 2 billion years ago, simple cyanobacteria completely transformed the Earth in what's known today as the Great Oxidation Event. These humble algae changed the atmosphere from a reducing gas, which would not even have permitted an open fire, to a world rich in oxygen. Before cyanobacteria evolved to fix oxygen, the Industrial Revolution and the Green Revolution would not have been possible, simply because there wasn't enough oxygen in the air to even allow iron to rust, let alone to allow anyone to metabolize food or run an internal combustion engine. Cyanobacteria transformed the biosphere into an oxidizing atmosphere with abundant O2 and paved the way for multicellular life forms. The previous anaerobic life forms were almost completely wiped out. And the ice? That's also due to a single species, which radically altered the Earth far more than humans have or probably ever will. The ice exists thanks to a floating freshwater fern called Azolla filiculioides. Azolla still exists all over the world today, but 49 million years ago, blooms of Azolla in the Arctic created an ice age. It's called the Late Cenozoic Ice Age, and we still live in it today. Did you know that we were living in an ice age? Did you know that the Arctic ice we see today, the refrigeration unit that makes agriculture and industrial civilization possible, is all due to a fern called Azolla, which once grew in abundance in the Arctic? You may be wondering how a floating freshwater fern could grow in the Arctic Ocean. 49 million years ago, the Earth was in a hot greenhouse Earth state. At that time, Earth was so warm that crocodiles, turtles, and even palm trees thrived in the Arctic Circle. The Arctic Ocean was almost enclosed by land, more like a huge lake, and so many freshwater rivers drained into it that a layer of fresh water formed over the denser seawater below. Azolla colonized the fresh water and was so successful at drawing down CO2 out of the atmosphere that it caused permanent global climate change that lasts to this day. Under the right conditions, Azolla can double its biomass every 2 to 3 days. At such a high growth rate, the surface Azolla suffocated and killed the layers below, which then sank to the anoxic ocean floor. There they sequestered the carbon they had absorbed, locking it away in vast carbon deposits. The Azolla event dropped atmospheric carbon dioxide levels from about 3,500 parts per million to about 650 parts per million. Still well higher than the 420 or so parts per million today, but it was enough to create polar ice caps at both poles, possibly for the first time since Snowball Earth 650 million years ago. Could we use Azolla for geoengineering to combat anthropogenic climate change, you may be thinking? Azolla can't save us from our industrial sins and cool the planet once again because there simply isn't enough fresh water to grow it. Even if there was enough fresh water, the process could still take millions of years. Now, as Homo Deus scrambles for the melting Arctic and its fossil fuel resources, we are likely to put the wild Earth system even deeper into shock with the hydrocarbons we expose there. The Arctic contains approximately 13% of global undiscovered oil, approximately 30% of global undiscovered conventional natural gas, and as much as 1/3 of global gas hydrates. As we warm the Arctic with modern agricultural and fossil fuel burning and the ice retreats, more hydrocarbons become available to us to mine and burn in the oxygen-rich atmosphere, which will cause ever more warming, which will make more fossil fuel accessible, and so on. Mankind is disrupting a series of glacial cycles of about 100,000 years. We're about 10 to 12,000 years into an interglacial period, roughly the length of the modern urban civilization that is now forcing us into new and unknown climate epochs. If the methane hydrate deposits in the Arctic are disturbed, it could trigger the rapid release of greenhouse gas, which would, in effect, raise the fossilized azola back from the dead in the form of methane. The recent IPCC report says that this is a very high-impact event with low probability. Some observational Arctic scientists strongly disagree about the low probability. Does this mean that the ice wolves, the ice bears, the foxes, reindeer, musk ox, the eagles are soon to be replaced by crocodiles, turtles, and palm trees again? Not likely. The change is happening too rapidly. Most of the tropical wildlife will probably go extinct before it can migrate north. Crocodiles, turtles, and palm trees are mostly endangered species. Wild habitats are dying, not migrating. Human technology is rearranging the world faster than life can keep up. At this point, even the cyanobacteria that caused the great oxidation event in the first place are at risk from ocean acidification. And the ice is still going south.